My name is Andrea Morales. I'm 29 years old, and for most of my life, I thought I was living the kind of story people envied. Born and raised in Miami, I was the only child of two people who turned nothing into an empire. My parents started a real estate business out of a garage and turned it into one of the most successful firms in the city. I grew up surrounded by marble floors and ocean views, but in our house, comfort was never an excuse for laziness. My father used to say, "You earn your seat at the table even if I built the table myself." At 16, while my friends were tanning on South Beach, I was in the company office, alphabetizing contracts and shadowing agents on property tours. I hated it then. But I understand now he wasn't teaching me real estate. He was teaching me humility. By 29, I had climbed from assistant to project lead. My father trusted me with million-dollar developments. My mother, ever the strategist, handled PR and branding and insisted I start attending more social events. Networking, she called it. You can't run an empire from behind a desk, Andrea. People invest in faces, not signatures. I didn't expect that advice to change my entire life. It was at a charity gala, a blur of champagne and chandeliers, that I met Randy Reed. He was standing near one of the art display's camera hanging around his neck, his sleeves rolled to his forearms like he wanted everyone to see how casually confident he was. When our eyes met, he smiled as if he'd been expecting me. Let me guess, he said, "You're the kind of person who pretends to hate events like these, but secretly likes the free wine." I laughed, caught off guard. He wasn't wrong. Randy told me he was a brand photographer doing shoots for luxury companies and influencers. Everything about him was magnetic. His humor, the way he leaned in when he spoke, the spark in his eyes when he described his work. I'd met plenty of polished, wealthy men before, but Randy had something different, an energy that made the room fade around him. When he offered to take my photo just to capture this moment, I let him. The flash went off, and for some reason it felt like something permanent had been recorded, something more than just light on a sensor. We started seeing each other after that night. It was easy, effortless. Randy made everything feel cinematic, late-night drives along the coast, rooftop dinners, whispered jokes during crowded events. My mother adored him instantly. She said he was charming with just the right amount of ambition. My father took longer. He didn't say much about Randy at first, just observed. But even he had to admit Randy was a smart young man who knows how to present himself. For a while, I believed I'd found the perfect balance, someone who wasn't intimidated by my family's success, someone who seemed genuinely proud of me. We looked good together, and I won't lie, I liked that. When Randy introduced me as my future wife at events, people smiled approvingly. I used to think love was about comfort. Randy taught me that love could be thrilling. A year and a half later, he proposed. Not quietly, not privately, but in the most extravagant way possible. He rented a private yacht, filled it with roses, and invited a small orchestra to play under the moonlight. I remember laughing and crying at the same time, barely hearing him ask the question because the music was too loud and everyone was watching. But I said yes anyway. And just like that, the perfect story continued. The wedding was a spectacle, 500 guests, a cliffside venue overlooking the ocean, everything meticulously planned by Randy. My mother called it a magazine cover in motion. He thrived on the attention, the cameras, the applause. I just tried to keep up. When I walked down the aisle, Randy's eyes glistened. For a brief second, I thought, this is it. This is the man I'll grow old with. I didn't realize how temporary that illusion was. The days that followed were a blur of press mentions, congratulatory posts, and tagged photos. Everyone said we looked like a power couple, and we were, or at least that's how it appeared. My parents gifted us a 2-week honeymoon in Bora Bora. I remember laughing when I first saw the villa. It looked unreal, like a postcard come to life. Overwater bungalows, turquoise lagoons, glass floors that revealed fish darting beneath our feet. It felt like paradise, and I wanted to believe paradise meant safety. Randy couldn't stop filming. Every breakfast, every sunset, every smile had to be documented. "We'll want to remember this forever," he said, adjusting his lens. I didn't mind at first. I even posed, laughing into his camera as the ocean wind tangled my hair. It felt romantic until it started feeling rehearsed. One night, as we sat under a canopy of stars with candles flickering between us, Randy glanced at his phone and grinned. "We're basically everyone's couple goals right now," he said, showing me a post that had just hit thousands of likes. I smiled back, but something inside me shifted. That was the first time I noticed it, the way he looked at the phone, not at me. Maybe it sounds small, but in that moment, a quiet thought crossed my mind. Who are we doing this for? I brushed it off. We were newlyweds in paradise. I told myself I was overthinking that some people just love to share their happiness. Still, as I watched Randy frame another photo of us, asking me to tilt my chin softer. Smile. Hold that pose, I couldn't shake the feeling that the camera wasn't capturing love, it was replacing it. If only I'd trusted that instinct sooner. Because beneath all that sunlight and beauty, something was already rotting. And I was about to find out just how dark paradise could get. Bora Bora was supposed to be heaven on earth. For the first few days it was. The water shimmered like melted glass, and every sunrise painted the horizon in colors that didn't seem real. Randy and I had everything we could possibly want: private breakfasts on the deck, massages overlooking the ocean, champagne at noon for no reason at all. It was the kind of place people dream about. And for a while I convinced myself I was living that dream. But even paradise can feel hollow when something beneath it isn't right. Randy spent most mornings staging our life through his phone lens. "Hold your drink higher, babe," he'd say. "The light's better this way." I'd laugh and play along, but after a few days, it became clear he wasn't documenting us. He was performing for them. "Who's them?" I once asked, with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Our followers," he said, simply, as if that explained everything. Every post was perfectly timed, perfectly captioned. # honeymoon goals. # forever starts now. The comments poured in. "You two are perfect. Dream couple. I'm crying. This is beautiful." Randy soaked in every word like it was oxygen. He'd sit on the edge of the bed, scrolling through likes with a little smirk, whispering, "We're trending, Andrea. Can you believe that?" I'd nod. But deep down, I started wondering who I'd really married, a man or his reflection. Still, I tried to keep the peace. Newlyweds argue over small things all the time, right? I didn't want to ruin our honeymoon over something as silly as a screen. Until the small things started piling up. He flirted too easily. Not in an obvious way, but enough to make me notice. The resort staff adored him, especially the women. The concierge laughed a little too hard at his jokes. The waitress lingered when she poured his wine. Randy, of course, didn't mind. He turned every interaction into a performance, all charm and no boundaries. One afternoon, as we lounged by the pool, I reached over to take his hand. He didn't notice. He was too busy editing another photo. "You know," I said lightly, "this place looks even better when you're not looking at it through a screen." He laughed without looking up. "Come on, Andrea, don't be like that. People love seeing our adventures." "I know," I said softly, "but maybe we could have a few moments that aren't for show." He finally looked at me, half amused, half irritated. "You're taking this way too seriously. Relax. You're on vacation." "Vacation," I repeated under my breath. "Right." He turned back to his phone, and the sound of the waves filled the silence between us. That night at dinner, he was his charming self again, smiling, talking about future plans, making me laugh. He had this way of flipping a switch, turning warmth on and off like a light. By dessert, I'd convinced myself I was overreacting. But the pattern continued. The next morning, while I was getting ready, Randy mentioned casually, I talked to one of the staff. Apparently, they have this amazing photographer here. She specializes in honeymoon shoots. Thought it might be fun. "Photographer?" I asked. "Yeah, her name's Sienna Cruz," he said, scrolling through his phone. "She's done shoots for influencers and travel magazines. Her stuff's incredible." The name stuck in my mind for reasons I couldn't explain. Maybe it was the way he said it too easily, too eagerly. "I don't know," I said. "We've already taken hundreds of pictures." He grinned. "Trust me, she's a professional. Just one session. You'll thank me later." And like that, it was settled. 2 days later, Sienna arrived at our villa for the shoot. She was everything you'd imagine a resort photographer to be: bronzed skin, perfectly tousled hair, confident smile that bordered on flirtatious. She introduced herself with a warm handshake, but her eyes lingered on Randy a moment too long. "Wow," she said with a laugh. "You two are a gorgeous couple. This will be fun." Her accent was soft, melodic Caribbean maybe, and she moved like she owned the light. Randy followed her instructions like a seasoned model. I tried to keep up, smiling for the camera, pretending I didn't notice the subtle glances exchanged between them. At one point, Sienna placed her hand lightly on his shoulder, adjusting his pose. "Relax your jaw," she said, smiling. "Let the emotion show." Her fingers lingered longer than they needed to. Randy laughed, playful. "Like this." "Perfect," she said, clicking the shutter. I stood there, frozen between irritation and disbelief. The moment ended quickly, and the shoot continued, but something inside me shifted again, deeper this time. That night, Randy couldn't stop talking about how talented she was. You should have seen her camera setup, he said, his eyes glowing. She's got this natural vision. It's rare, Andrea. I said, trying to sound neutral. The next morning, he told me Sienna had suggested a solo shoot for him. Just for creative stuff, he explained. She thinks I could model for some of her portfolio shots. It'll be fun. I stared at him. You want to spend the afternoon doing a private shoot with another woman? He laughed. You make it sound worse than it is. She's a professional. Come on, you trust me, right? That word trust hung between us like a blade. Of course, I said finally. Go. Enjoy yourself. He kissed my cheek, oblivious to the tension in my voice, and left. Hours passed. The sun set. I sat alone on the deck watching the sky bleed into the sea, feeling a strange emptiness that didn't make sense yet. When Randy returned, he was beaming. Sienna's incredible, he said, tossing his camera bag onto the bed. We got some amazing shots. You'll see. I smiled weakly. Can't wait. Later that evening, as we were about to head to dinner, there was a knock on the villa door. A resort staff member stood there polite and nervous, holding a small USB drive. Good evening, ma'am, she said. These are the photos from your husband's session earlier today. Miss Sienna asked that we deliver them to you. Oh, I said, surprised. Thank you. I slipped the USB into my pocket and closed the door. At dinner, Randy was unusually talkative, ordering wine, cracking jokes, complimenting me as if trying to overcompensate. I kept my smile steady, my voice even. He didn't notice the drive burning a hole in my pocket like a secret waiting to explode. That night, when he said he was tired and went to bed early, I sat by the window laptop on my lap, the waves whispering outside. I stared at the USB for a long time before plugging it in. The photos loaded slowly. At first, they were what I expected, Randy posing near the beach, golden light spilling across his face. Sienna's talent was undeniable. She'd captured him beautifully. But as I scrolled, the tone shifted. The shots became more personal. His shirt unbuttoned, her reflection in his sunglasses, a hand hers on his chest. Then a frame that made my stomach drop. Randy laughing, his arm around her waist. Another closer, another, her lips on his. My fingers froze on the trackpad. Click. Another photo, and another. Each one worse than the last. By the final image, I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just flirtation, it was intimacy, raw, deliberate, and filmed like art. My husband, on our honeymoon, with another woman. The ocean outside was silent. The only sound was the faint hum of my laptop as the screen glowed in the dark. Lighting. The tears I hadn't realized were falling. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just sat there staring at the images, numb. The same hands that once held me were now wrapped around someone else. The same eyes that had promised forever were looking at her. And for the first time since the wedding, I didn't feel married. I felt trapped, betrayed, and suddenly very, very awake. I didn't sleep that night. The air in the villa felt heavy, every soft sound reminding me that he was still here, snoring softly in the same bed where he'd whispered forever just days ago. I sat on the deck in silence, the glow of my laptop reflecting the truth back at me. I went through the photos again, this time slower. My rational mind searched for excuses. Maybe it was artistic, maybe it was staged, but the timestamps told a story that couldn't be twisted. The earlier shots were from 2 days before Randy said he had the solo shoot. So it hadn't just happened. It had started long before. By the time the first faint light of morning touched the horizon, my heartbeat had steadied into something cold. I knew what I had to do. When Randy woke up, I was sitting at the table, a cup of untouched coffee in front of me. He smiled, hair tousled, stretching like a man without a care in the world. "Morning, Mrs. Reed," he said playfully, leaning down to kiss my cheek. I turned my face away. "Morning." He frowned. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, "just tired." He shrugged, too self-assured to sense the shift. "Let's go paddleboarding later. The water's perfect today." Maybe I said quietly, "Oh, by the way, the resort delivered something last night." He blinked. "Something?" "Your photos," I said evenly, "from your session with Sienna." The color drained from his face. It happened so fast he couldn't hide it. "Oh," he said too casually. "That's nice of them." "Yeah," I said, standing up. "They're interesting." His throat bobbed. "You looked through them." Of course I did. I met his eyes, no emotion left in my voice. I thought I should see what kind of artistic vision Sienna had. He opened his mouth, searching for something, anything to say. "Andrea, it's not what you think." I cut him off, pulling my phone from my pocket. I had transferred every photo to it. With a few swipes, I brought up one, the one where he was kissing her. I turned the screen toward him. "Explain this." He froze. Then came the excuses, predictable and pathetic. "It's not what it looks like. We were, posing." It was for the shoot. She wanted natural chemistry. Natural chemistry. My laugh was hollow. Is that what they call it now? Andrea, please. I didn't mean for it to go that far. It just happened. I stared at him. It just happened. I repeated the words, tasting like acid. You tripped and fell into her mouth, is that it? He rubbed his face, desperate. You've been so distant lately, always working, always. Somewhere else. I just felt lonely, I snapped. We're on our honeymoon, Randy. You had to cheat on me here to feel alive. His voice cracked. I made a mistake. I swear it didn't mean anything. I looked at him for a long time, this man I'd trusted with my future, and realized that every promise, every photo, every smile had been a performance. I see, I said finally. Then I guess it won't mean anything when I end this marriage. Wait, he said, stepping closer. You can't be serious. I stepped back. Pack your things. You're leaving the villa today. Andrea, don't make me repeat myself. He hesitated, maybe thinking I wouldn't do it, but the look in my eyes must have told him otherwise. I turned away, grabbed the villa phone, and called the front desk. Good morning, Mrs. Reed, the manager's polite voice answered. Not for long, I said coldly. My husband will no longer be staying in this villa. Move him to another room in the main building and make sure his access card is disabled. A pause. Of course, ma'am, right away. Randy stood there stunned. You can't be serious. You're what, throwing me out? Yes, I said. Out of my sight, my villa, and my life. He started to protest again, but I cut him off. You wanted independence, didn't you? Congratulations. You have it now. When the staff arrived to escort him, he tried one last time. Please, Andrea, don't do this. We can fix it. I met his eyes. You broke it beyond repair. He reached out to touch me, but I pulled away. The look in his eyes shifted from guilt to anger. You'll regret this, he muttered. I smiled faintly. No, for the first time I won't. As the door closed behind him, silence filled the villa, dense, almost sacred. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there breathing in the quiet like oxygen. Within an hour, I called my father. I told him everything, every disgusting detail. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't curse. He simply said, I taught you to build empires, not to crumble over cowards. Handle it. And I did. By that evening, every credit card Randy had access to was frozen. Every joint account, every business link, every shared benefit cut. My family's lawyers handled the rest. When I got confirmation that everything was locked down, I poured myself a glass of champagne, walked onto the deck, and watched the sunset alone. I expected to feel shattered. Instead, I felt calm. The kind of calm that comes after a storm when you realize the destruction was necessary. He'd called what he did a mistake, but it wasn't. It was a choice, and now I was making mine. Tomorrow, I'd make sure the photographer who helped him betray me would face the same consequences. Because no one ruins my life without losing theirs in the process. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of waves brushing against the wooden stilts of the villa. The same gentle rhythm that once felt romantic now felt mocking. Randy was gone, his clothes, his cologne, his chaos. For the first time in days, the air felt clean. I made myself coffee black and bitter, just the way my father drank it when he was furious. And I started making calls. The resort manager answered on the first ring. Good morning, Mrs. Reed. I hope you're enjoying your stay. I'm not, I interrupted flatly, and we need to discuss one of your employees. A beat of silence. Of course. Which employee? Sienna Cruz, I said. Your photographer. The line went still. I could almost hear the man's pulse quicken. Yes, she's one of our freelancers. Has there been an issue? Yes, I said. She slept with my husband. During our honeymoon. In this resort. The gasp on the other end was sharp. Mrs. Reed, I don't know what to say. That's completely unacceptable. You're right, I said. It is. I have photographic proof. Explicit proof. His tone changed immediately. Professional. Apologetic, terrified. Please allow us to investigate immediately. This is a grave violation of our code of conduct. Do that, I said coldly. And when you fire her, make sure it's public enough that she never gets another job like this again. I hung up before he could respond. I didn't stop there. I called my family's legal consultant in Miami, a woman named Gabriela Delgado, who'd handled my father's toughest negotiations. Gabby. I said I need a divorce. Quietly, but completely. Do you have a prenup? She asked. An airtight one, I said. Signed before the wedding under my family trust. Her voice softened with approval. Then he won't get a dime. I'll start drafting everything today. You just enjoy your vacation. I almost laughed at the irony. By noon, the manager called back. His voice trembled with polite urgency. Mrs. Reed, we've concluded our internal review. Ms. Cruz has been terminated immediately. We deeply apologize for this incident and will ensure she never works at any affiliated property again. Good, I said. See that she doesn't. When I hung up, I finally let myself breathe. Not cry breathe. The kind of breath that felt like reclaiming oxygen I hadn't realized I'd been deprived of. But revenge, real revenge, wasn't about rage. It was about precision. That afternoon, I took Randy's old camera from his bag. Inside, the memory card was still full. Photos, videos, the perfect documentary of his own downfall. I copied everything onto my laptop. Then I opened his Instagram. It was flooded with pictures of us. His captions, my forever, my muse, my everything. I smirked. Not anymore. I didn't post anything. I didn't have to. All I did was quietly send a single anonymous email to a few gossip outlets and travel forums. A well-known honeymoon photographer at the Bora Bora Pearl Resort was fired today after having an affair with a married guest. The couple's photos, meant to be romantic, turned explicit. Both parties have been identified. No names, just truth. By evening, whispers were spreading online. Someone had connected the dots through Sienna's tagged portfolio. Her clients began unfollowing her in waves. Within hours, her account went private. Randy called me that night. The screen lit up with his name, Randy Reed. I stared at it for a long time before answering. Andrea, he said breathlessly, Did you do this? Do what I asked evenly. Sienna just called me in tears. She's been fired. People online are tearing her apart. Good, I said. He exhaled hard. You ruined her life. Correction, I said calmly. You both ruined mine. I just leveled the scales. You can't do this. Watch me. There was a long pause. Then he said, almost pleading, Andrea, I know I messed up, but this is too much. You're better than this. I smiled to myself. You don't know me as well as you thought. I ended the call. By the next morning, the scandal had taken a life of its own. Travel blogs picked it up. Some posted the story under titles like Luxury Honeymoon Scandal Rocks Bora Bora Resort. They blurred the names, but not enough. People found Sienna's face. Randy's too. I didn't post once. I didn't have to. Silence was my weapon. That afternoon, I received an email from Sienna. The subject line, you won. I opened it. I don't know what you told them, but I'm done. They blacklisted me from every resort in the region. I lost everything. I hope you're happy. I read it twice, then deleted it. Yes, I was happy. Not because she suffered, but because the power had finally shifted back to me. As I stood on the deck that evening, watching the sun dip beneath the ocean, I thought about the girl I was just a week ago, naive in love, full of trust. That version of me had died the night I opened that USB drive. This version, the one who stayed calm, who planned every step, who didn't crumble, was someone my father would have recognized. Randy had always wanted to turn our love into a spectacle. Now he had one, the kind that would haunt him for years. And the irony, I didn't even have to say a single word. Because sometimes silence is louder than screaming. Sometimes revenge is quieter and far more permanent. 2 days after I left Bora Bora, Randy's world began to implode. The first crack appeared online. A gossip site posted an article titled, Scandal in Paradise Newlywed Photographer Exposed. The story didn't name me, but it didn't need to. The description, heir to a Miami real estate family, recent high-profile wedding, was enough for people to connect the dots. By the end of the day, Randy's social media pages were flooded with comments. Is this about you? How could you do that to her? Man, you cheated on your honeymoon. He tried to do damage control, of course, deleted posts, turned off comments, then posted a long note with the caption, Don't believe everything you read. There are always two sides to every story. Two sides. As if betrayal had ever been negotiable. He called me again that night. I let it ring twice before picking up. Andrea, please, he started. You need to make a statement. People are twisting things. People, I repeated. You mean your followers? This is my reputation, he said, his voice rising. I'm losing clients. People think I'm a monster. You are, I said softly. Andrea, come on, he said, desperation breaking through his calm facade. This could ruin me. Then let it, I said, and hung up. I didn't block him. I wanted him to keep calling. To keep wondering when I'd answer. The next morning, Gabriella called me from Miami. Everything's ready, she said. The divorce paperwork, the asset freezes the official notice. He'll be served within 48 hours. Good, I said. And Andrea, she added, her tone firm. Don't respond to him. Don't let him bait you. Men like him feed on reaction. I smiled. He'll starve then. That afternoon, I got a call from the resort's corporate office. A woman from their guest relations team spoke with rehearsed sympathy. Mrs. Reed, we're deeply sorry for what happened. The photographer has been permanently banned from all partner resorts. We'd also like to offer you a complimentary stay anytime in the future. I almost laughed. You think I'm ever coming back there? The woman stammered. It's just standard protocol. Keep your protocol, I said, and ended the call. By the time I returned to Miami, Randy had gone quiet. Too quiet. Which meant he was planning something. I didn't have to wait long to find out what. 2 days later, one of my friends from college sent me a message. Hey, are you okay? Randy's been posting some weird stuff. He's saying you were controlling, that you isolated him. I opened his account. There it was, a string of vague, melodramatic posts. Some people look perfect on paper until you see what they're really like behind closed doors. Being silenced doesn't mean I'm guilty. No one deserves to be treated like property. He was trying to flip the script, trying to make me the villain in his story. But what he didn't realize was that villains don't always lose. Sometimes they win quietly. I called Gabriella. He's spreading lies online, I said. Let him, she replied. He's panicking. The more he talks, the more foolish he looks. Focus on the paperwork. By next week, he'll be legally nothing to you. I followed her advice. I said nothing publicly. My silence drove him insane. He tried calling me again. When I didn't answer, he left voice messages that began with apologies and ended with rage. You ruined me. Andrea, you turned everyone against me. You think you can destroy my life because your family's rich. You'll regret this. I'll take half of everything you own. That last one made me laugh out loud. He clearly didn't understand how deeply my father had protected me. Every property, every car, every account, all under my family's trust. The prenup he'd signed in his eagerness to marry me now sealed his fate. He had no claim to anything, not even our apartment. Gabriella filed the official divorce motion that week. When the documents reached him, he tried to fight back. Claimed emotional distress accused me of defamation. But the evidence, the photos, the timestamps, the signed agreements crushed every attempt. The last time we spoke was during the legal mediation. He was furious, his voice trembling. You're heartless, he spat. You think this makes you powerful? No, I said quietly. It makes me free. His lawyer tried to argue, but the case was already dead. With the evidence of his infidelity, he wasn't just losing the marriage, he was forfeiting any right to compensation. When the mediator declared the terms final, Randy stood up, shaking his head in disbelief. You'll regret this, Andrea, he hissed. You can't erase what we had. I looked at him. Really looked at him. His once perfect posture now slumped. His confidence gone. You're right, I said. I can't erase it, but I can rewrite the ending. He left without another word. A week later, Sienna posted one last message on her private account before disappearing entirely. Some mistakes cost you everything. It was the first time she'd ever been honest. Randy, meanwhile, vanished from social media completely. His photography page deleted his name scrubbed from client lists. Word spread that no brand wanted to be associated with him anymore. As for me, I went back to work at the company. My father said nothing for days. Then one evening, as we walked through the construction site of our newest project, he finally spoke. You didn't lose, Andrea, he said quietly. You learned. Learned what I asked. That sometimes strength isn't about holding on, he said, glancing at me. It's about letting go without flinching. I nodded. The smell of concrete dust and salt air filled the silence between us. He was right. I had not lost anything worth keeping. I just cleaned house. And maybe someday I'd even learn to trust again. But for now, peace was enough. Because while Randy's world was collapsing, mine was finally standing tall, built on truth, not illusion. The divorce was finalized on a cloudy Thursday morning. No tears, no drama, no last-minute pleas. Just a quiet meeting in a sterile conference room where a judge glanced at the papers, nodded once, and said, It's done. That was it. A marriage that had begun with fireworks ended with a stamp of ink. I stepped outside into the Miami humidity and took a deep breath. The city was alive, cars, honking waves of heat rising off the pavement, life moving forward. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was standing still. My phone buzzed, a message from Gabriella. All assets are secure. He's officially cut off. Congratulations, Andrea. You handled this like a queen. A queen. Funny, I didn't feel royal. I just felt empty. That night, I sat in my apartment. My apartment, because the deed was under my name alone, and scrolled through old photos. Randy's smile, his arm around me, our Bora Bora sunsets. Every image looked staged now, like promotional stills from a life I'd never actually lived. I deleted them all, one by one. It was like sweeping broken glass off the floor, painful, necessary cleansing. Over the next few weeks, rumors about Randy and Sienna spread faster than I could have imagined. Someone leaked parts of their old messages online, screenshots, timestamps, flirtatious exchanges. His name became a joke in the local influencer community. "That's the honeymoon guy," people whispered, "the one who cheated and got blacklisted." Even my PR manager, Nadia, who had tried to stay neutral, called me one afternoon and said, "You don't need to worry about his narrative anymore. The internet took care of him." I didn't ask for details. I didn't need to know. Every time I thought of him now, it was like remembering a bad dream that had finally stopped replaying. Still late at night, when the city went quiet, I sometimes caught myself wondering how he was surviving. Was he working again? Was he with someone else? Did he ever think about me? The answer came in the form of an unexpected email from Randy Reed. Subject: just one conversation. "Andrea, you win. You've destroyed everything. I lost my job, my clients, and my reputation. But if revenge was what you wanted, congratulations, you got it. I loved you even if you'll never believe it. I hope it was worth it." I read it twice, expressionless. Then, without replying, I archived it. That was his version of closure. Mine was silence. 3 days later, I found out he'd moved back in with his mother in a small town outside Orlando. A mutual acquaintance mentioned he was trying to start a freelance business again, but no one wanted to work with him. The internet never forgets after all. Sienna, on the other hand, completely vanished. Her accounts were deleted, her portfolio gone. The woman who once posed as the muse of paradise had disappeared into the shadows she created. And me, I was rebuilding. I threw myself into work, late nights, early mornings, projects that demanded precision. I bought new furniture, repainted the walls white, and started filling my home with things that reflected who I was, not who we were. One evening, while reviewing contracts in the office, my father came in. He set a cup of tea on my desk and leaned against the doorframe. "You've been here past midnight 3 times this week," he said. I smiled faintly. "You used to say work is therapy." I said hard work is therapy, he corrected. "Running from pain is just distraction." I looked up at him, tired. "Then what should I do with it?" "Build something out of it," he said simply. "Pain can be a foundation if you're smart enough to pour it right." He turned to leave, but stopped at the door. By the way, he added quietly, "I'm proud of you, mija. You didn't fall apart. You handled it the Morales way." After he left, I sat there for a long time, staring at the city lights outside my window. Maybe he was right. Maybe heartbreak wasn't the end, it was a blueprint. A month later, I took a trip back to Bora Bora, not for revenge, not for nostalgia, but for closure. The resort staff still recognized me. They treated me like glass, careful, apologetic. But I wasn't the same woman who'd arrived here before. I stood on that same deck where I'd once cried in silence, and this time I smiled. The ocean hadn't changed, but I had. That night, as the sky turned violet and the horizon melted into the water, I wrote in my journal. He mistook my kindness for weakness, but now I know the truth. Some lessons cost peace, some cost love. Mine cost both, but bought me freedom. I closed the book, breathed in the salt air, and let the past drift away with the tide. Whatever came next, it would be mine. It's strange how silence can become addictive once you've lived through chaos. After everything Randy, the scandal, the endless noise of heartbreak, my world became still. And in that stillness, I finally heard myself again. I moved out of the apartment we'd once shared and bought a small ocean view loft just outside Miami. It wasn't as grand as the penthouse Randy used to flaunt online, but it was mine. No echoes of old arguments, no ghosts of filtered happiness. Just clean walls, soft light, and space to breathe. I started waking up early again, something I hadn't done since before the wedding. I'd walk barefoot to the balcony with a cup of coffee and watch the city wake up. The sky would shift from indigo to gold, the sound of waves mixing with distant traffic. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about how to impress anyone. I wasn't performing. I was just Andrea. Work became my sanctuary. I threw myself into new projects, not as an escape, but as proof that I could build something beautiful out of ruin. My father quietly reinstated me as a lead director for our new coastal development, his way of saying, "I trust you again." At meetings, people still whispered sometimes. They thought I didn't notice. "She's the one whose husband." Yes, the scandal in Bora Bora. But I did notice. And for the first time, it didn't sting. Because whispers can't hurt you when you own your story. A few months later, at a charity gala, the same kind of event where I once met Randy, I found myself laughing again. Not pretending, not politely, but genuinely. Someone asked me if I was seeing anyone. I smiled and said, "No, I'm seeing myself right now, and she's finally worth my time." That night, I went home, poured a glass of wine, and reread the journal I'd started after the divorce. Every page was a record of survival, some angry, some broken, some proud. But there was one entry that stopped me cold. It was something I'd written the day after I found those photos. I don't want revenge. I want peace. But if peace has to be built on the ashes of what hurt me, then so be it. I realized I had both now revenge and peace, and I'd earned them. Still, closure came in an unexpected way. One afternoon, months later, I got a message from an unknown number. "Andrea, it's Randy. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know I'm leaving Miami. For good. I'm sorry for everything. You didn't deserve any of it." I stared at the screen for a while, then I typed back 2 words. "I know." And that was the last time I ever heard from him. No dramatic ending, no apology tour, just silence. The kind that feels like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. In the months that followed, my life grew quieter but fuller. I started taking photography classes on weekends, the irony not lost on me. My teacher, an older woman named Rosa, once asked me why I chose the camera. "To learn to see clearly," I said. "I think I forgot how." She smiled softly. "Then you're here for the right reason." And I was. Every frame I captured reminded me that beauty isn't about perfection, it's about truth. Light and shadow existing together, neither hiding from the other. Sometimes when I frame a shot of the sea, I think of Bora Bora not with anger, but with a strange kind of gratitude. Because that place, as painful as it was, gave me clarity. It stripped away everything false love image illusion and left me raw, real, and unbreakable. The last photo I took before submitting my final assignment was a self-portrait. Just me, barefoot on the balcony, wind in my hair, the ocean behind me. No makeup, no posing, no filters. I titled it Freedom. Because that's what I'd become. And maybe someday I'll love again. Maybe I won't. Either way, I'm okay. Because I finally understand you don't lose yourself when someone betrays you. You find the part of you they could never touch. And that part is what survives.